The way I see Glenn, and I'm going to give my personal take, is he's the thought leader to thought leaders. So people who want to have more influence, who want to be known as the expert in their niche. And realistically, that should be all of us, whether you're a lawyer, a doctor, a chiropractor, butcher, baker, candlestick maker, whatever it is, because now the internet's opened up a world of opportunity, but it's also opened up a world of competition, right? So now your competitor is not necessarily the person down the street, it's someone right across the globe. And so how do you stand out as that key person of influence where they wouldn't even think of doing business with anyone else? So with that, I'm going to hand over to Glenn. Glenn's got an amazing presentation for you, and he's going to really give you some material that's going to help you become that key person of influence. So over to you, Glenn.
Good on you, Allan. Thank you very much. And thanks everyone for tuning in. And my dad was a shipwright in the Navy, the Australian Navy. So that means he built boats. Mum was a hairdresser. So just kind of a fairly common sort of family, I suppose. But my dad got a bit frustrated, right? And went to my nana and said, look, I love my son and I love my wife, love family, work's okay, but something's sort of missing. And she said to him, well, what would you do if you weren't afraid? Anyone that knows my dad, that's like a red flag to a bull, right? So it was like, oh, okay. I'd sail around the world, build a boat and sail around the world. And she just looked at him and raised an eyebrow, and he kind of went, right, okay, done. So retired from the Navy, built our boat because that's what he did, and he named it Yarrandoo 2, which is Aboriginal for Southern Cross. And we sailed around the world for 7 years. We left when I was 6 and got back when I was 14. So I was little, but I remember vividly Carnival and, sailing into New York City and seeing the World Trade Centers and Egypt and Cairo and the pyramids. And it was a wild way to grow up. And while I am the skipper of a yacht now, I don't own a yacht, but I sail yachts. The vehicle that my dad used to experience freedom was a boat. The freedom I use is business. That, to me, that became my passion. It became my love. It became my vehicle for freedom, adventure. It's also my sandbox for personal development, right? I think if you've got any unresolved issues around ego or vanity or any of these things, the beautiful, magnificent reality of the market is going to, and the opportunity to build a business and manage team and have that wonderful reflection back is a wonderful way to grow. We called our company Dent as an homage to Steve Jobs. He said it's the role of every entrepreneur to make a dent in the universe. And for us, that's about the idea that this concept of making money should be a very small part of who we are. We happen to be in the business of producing key people of influence. That's what we do. Some people are lawyers, some people are plumbers. We've got very, very good at working with entrepreneurs and leaders to package them in such a way that the market is able to recognize their real value. One of the things that I like to talk about is this idea that people can only pay for value they can recognize. Right? I'm sure you'd agree. And if you're taking notes, that might be an idea to notch down, right? People can only pay for value they can recognize. People can only act upon value they can recognize. And so if you're trying to sell a 5-bedroom house, but you're only showing people through 2 of the bedrooms, well, you're going to struggle to get your asking price. With property and things that are tangible, it's very obvious to us. But the problem with certainly my business, and I would say most of your businesses, the vast majority, is they're quite intangible. So it becomes far more difficult, far more nuanced, and far easier to just not really focus on how do we communicate our value in the most comprehensive and impactful way. And when we're talking about this idea of becoming a key person of influence, that's really what we're talking about. We're about how do we more effectively communicate the value and the impact we have to offer. And I'm here to sell you all on the idea that goes way beyond the idea of just communicating the features, the advantages, and the benefits of our actual product itself, right? There is far more of you could call it a gestalt, an ecosystem of value that is required. And let me start with some perspective, if that's useful for everybody. Back in the industrial age, right? If you could build it, people would buy it, right? Because it was so damn hard to build anything, right? Think about the difficulty in building a pair of scissors, right? Or a pencil even. Something simple like that, from mining the raw ingredients, the iron and the ore, and to the smelting and to all the other manufacturing that would go into it, right? So for all of those people that actually owned factories, they had the means of production within their control. They built incredible wealth, right? We measured gross domestic product, which is what you produce, not what you in fact even sell. And so if you think about the basics of economics, right? Supply and demand, the demand was easy, the supply was hard. Those who owned factories had that means of production, had that ability to manufacture, supply. The demand was always just there, no problem. Now, of course, we live in the digital age now. The barriers to entry, the access to the means of production has almost dropped to zero. And many of the biggest companies in the world were literally started by kids in a garage. So the internet basically gave access to the means of production to almost everybody, made it really easy to make stuff. Anyone could write code, anyone could produce music, anyone could start a business, right? Not particularly hard. So in terms of supply and demand, now the supply is easy, but generating demand, making sure you've got a steady stream of people that just want what you've got is hard. And in fact, it's really hard, right? So the big difference is back in the industrial age, it was a supply side problem. Right? That was the hard stuff. In the digital age, it's really a demand side problem. Eric Schmidt from Google, Google's first CEO, famously said, revenue fixes everything. Right? It's like, yeah, you got problems with team and distribution and logistics and governance, all this sort of stuff that's going to come up, especially as you grow. But if you've got a steady flow of qualified leads of people that know you, like you, trust you, want to work with you, that's going to cascade through to give you the confidence and the certainty to solve all those other issues. I just want to make sure we're on the same page here. We're seeing the same reality. Let's ask this question, right? What makes a business oversubscribed, right? Well, here's a cafe, right? Doors wide open, not much happening. That is a metaphor for most businesses. And it's the same we run our accelerators throughout the US, Canada, UK, Europe, North, South. It's time zone, a global audience, time zone based. So, and this is the same sort of everywhere. Whereas here, we see that there is a cafe that is absolutely oversubscribed. So here's what I want to ask you. What do you think the difference between Cafe 1 and Cafe 2 is, right? Now, intuitively, gut feel, without thinking too much about it, if someone was to say, they're doing Facebook ads, right? Or, they've just launched a great new website. Do you think that's going to land for you? Would you sit there and go, oh yeah, okay, that's what it is. The cafe's got a website, of course. Doesn't quite feel right, does it? Right? So you'd sit there and go, no, it's probably not going to be Facebook ads that are going to make the difference. Probably not going to be a great new website. Now, in the case here that I was showing, this is actually Monmouth Coffee. They've been around for 50 years, right? They're an institution, right? And so the question is, well, what if your goal is to achieve the outcome of becoming a key person of influence, becoming oversubscribed in your business, but you want to do it in less than 50 years? Well, let me just say that the majority, from what I see, are desperately seeking attention in all the wrong ways, right? Social media, Facebook ads, outbound call centers, new websites, video courses, video funnels, all this kind of stuff. And what we see is, we have all these things. Don't get me wrong. Allan has all those things. Don't get me wrong. And you might have played around with some of those things. But when we talk to people and go, what's the return on investment of all that stuff looking like for you? They tend to feel like it's a bit of a pain in the ass. It's a bit of a waste of money. They're a bit fed up and frustrated. Can anyone relate to that as well? Can I just have a proverbial show of hands or some yeses or nos in the chat if you can relate to that, right? Okay, so we're resonating here. We're on the same page. So what is it I'm talking about? Because I'm not denigrating any of those tools. They're tools for leverage. The question is, what are we leveraging? Right? And so there's two quotes that I think are relevant here. The first is that if you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. That's a big one. You do not want to be learning from the majority. The majority around the world, in some of the richest nations in the world, end up sick, tired, broke, and unhappy. So we do not want to model what they're doing. The next is Einstein's almost cliched quote, hackneyed quote, if you like, is that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So I want to hopefully create this session as a contextual marker for a shift in your focus and your action in 2022. Now, this is important because humans have evolved to be able to connect with people, not logos and brands. And I'm going to quantifiably prove this for you. Let's say you walk down a crowded street and at the end, I ask you to describe some of the people that you remember, right? Now, you'd be lucky to remember one or two in any detail whatsoever. Why? Because your brain is incredibly good. It has evolved to be able to filter stuff out, especially things that it considers to be irrelevant. Now, that is exactly what all of your customers and prospects and your market are trying to do in a noisy marketplace. Their brains are overloaded and they are hyper-tuned to try and tune you out, heavily biased to try and tune you out. So what do you need to do to, in fact, stand out? Well, research shows there are 5 things, 3 S's and 2 F's, right? When it comes to the question of what cuts through the noise, what captures people's attention, there's 3 S's and 2 F's. So jot these down, because the first S is the brain will notice anything strange, right? If you're walking down a crowded street and something strange pops up, bang, all of a sudden of the hundreds of other potential points of stimulus, that will draw your attention. The next S is anything scary, seems obvious. The third S is anything sexy. The brain is very good at noticing anything strange, anything scary, or anything sexy. Now, the first F is the brain will notice anything that can be offered for free, that's being offered for free. So your subconscious brain goes, ooh, effortless value, beautiful. And your brain will then go, what is it? What's the gift? What's the catch? How do I get one? What do I need to do? All this stuff is subconscious and immediate that way. The final F of the triple S, double F is your brain will notice anything that is familiar, right? So here's a lovely multicultural group of your good friends, right? So of course you're going to spot your mum, you're going to spot your friend, you're going to even spot someone that you've seen online as you walk down that busy street. It's called Dunbar's number. Robert Dunbar did a whole bunch of research into the maximum number of people that your brain can actually organize, right? So you can handle 5 in your family, you know, tough if you have a few extra kids, they're just going to be left out. 15 very close friends, 50 close friends, 150 friends, 500 acquaintances, and 1,500 just people that you could put a name to a face. So really where you want to be thinking about your marketing strategy is getting somewhere into that 500 to 1,500 space. You have to fit into one of those slots, right? And the moment you start to recognize this is where the concept of personal brand comes into play. It is the ultimate solution. It is the ultimate hack. That's why we've been focusing on this for a decade. So the majority spend most of their energy in face-to-face relationship building to generate new business, right? Meetings, sales conversations, networking. It's slow, right? It takes 50 years to become an institution in that way. And so the idea is that all the stuff that you give people access to consume, stuff people can watch, read, listen, do, media, content, books, whatever it might be, does far more to allow you to build your reputation at scale, right? Which is why we see people going through such radical transformations in our accelerators, because they're already good at what they do. They've just been missing this ecosystem piece. And so the fastest way to create a breakthrough in your business is to become recognized as one of the go-to brands in your industry. And so it requires the entrepreneur's bet. The entrepreneur's bet is that you can make more money playing your strengths than it costs to delegate your weaknesses. The entrepreneur's bet is when you get really, really serious about playing your strengths, delegating everything that is of low value, that is not your superpower, and elevating your strengths and therefore your impact, because we've only got so much time on this planet and every hour really counts. And if you can put your time into things that are going to create a 10x return and impact versus time where you would have to put 10 times more effort to get the same result, this is what the majority do. The majority put in 10 times more effort to get the same result than the minority. The majority see their organization as a mix of sales and marketing and operations and delivery. The minority recognize that their role, their job in the organization is not sales or marketing or operations or delivery. Their job as the key person of influence is the vital role of being the brand, of communicating the vision, the mission, and the value proposition at a scale and in a way, and by I say way, by leveraging media, by leveraging technology, to actually position oneself to manufacture demand, to solve the demand side problem that allows you as a human, as an individual, as a being, to transcend the noise of your business. So you can pay good people to organize, to keep the trains running on time, if you like, so you can play your strengths and do what you love. And in my experience in life, when you go all in, when you commit to playing at the highest standard, at the highest level, to play your strengths and to delegate all of your weaknesses and all the shit that you just don't like doing, that's an energetic all in. And there's something mystical about the universe or the cosmos or whatever you want to call it, God, I don't know, that responds to that, that gets your attention and goes, oh, okay, here we go. Boof. And all of a sudden, the game starts to shift. This idea of trying to find a breakthrough in our business to expand our brand without also finding our edge of fear doesn't happen. Discomfort precedes victory every time. If you think back to your last great victory in life, you'll recognize that it was preceded by a degree of discomfort. And so one of the things that I've come to realize in this life that I would like to remind you of is discomfort precedes victory. So if you're presented with an opportunity and it's like a path diverging in the woods, and you've got the opportunity to take the easy, comfortable option or the difficult option that freaks you out a little bit, the only logical thing to do if you want to achieve more victory, success, freedom, and impact in your life is to take the uncomfortable option. That is the only game to play. Now, that doesn't guarantee your success, but it absolutely swings the odds in your favor. And this is a process, right? And so here's the thing that I've found to be true is that key people of influence, true leaders, don't want to be in the spotlight. That's not their goal, right? What they want to do is to shine the spotlight on one big idea. For me, I believe there's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur. I think with all the recent disruption in the world, it's like a giant wave. You're either riding the wave or you're getting dumped by it. And my light, I want to shine, is on entrepreneurs that are standing out, that are scaling up, and that are making a dent in the universe. So here's my question to bring us home. What is the big idea that you want to shine the light on, right? If I was to provide you with the attention of thousands or tens of thousands or maybe millions of people, and they were listening to what you said, they were waiting for you to share a message, what would you want to direct their attention to? I want to direct people's attention to entrepreneurs standing out, scaling up, kicking the door off the hinges and doing something bloody meaningful with their business and with their life, right? Simon Sinek was about start with why, and now it's the infinite game. Brene Brown was about vulnerability and the power of that. Elon Musk is about the shift to renewable energy, right? The idea is when you commit and raise your standard to go, your mission in life is to find that thing, number one, and then number two is to share it with the world. You know, by simply coming along to sessions like this, working with people like Allan, working with people like us, we can definitely move the needle because it's not hard to reverse engineer your past to be able to work out what that would be. It often just needs a little bit of perspective. And if there's one sort of final thing, is that whether you can see it or not, you are standing on a mountain of value. A mountain of value. And I'm not being trite and I'm not being cliche, right? I get to see thousands of business owners every single month in terms of what they're doing, how they're working. And I get to see the fears, the doubts and insecurities, and I get to relate to them all because I have them myself, right? It doesn't go away from my experience. And so the metaphor of climbing a mountain is a good one. For any of you that have done any kind of mountain or even just big hill climbing, right? The more you climb, the more you see. The easier it is to see everybody else's mountain of value. Look at that mountain, look at that hill, look at that beautiful forest over there. And then you look down at what you've got and it's like a muddy path and your legs are sore and you've kind of run out of water and it's a dry mouth and it's like, oh, this sucks, right? It's so easy for us individually to remember and to associate with the struggle and the frustration and the problems and the challenges. And it's so easy to look around and see everyone else's mountain of value. It is so easy for our brain to minimize our own and to amplify everybody else's well beyond reality. And if there's one thing I've seen and learnt running a business accelerator is, we start working with people that have got the fears, the doubts, the insecurities. They're just not sure. They know they've got skills, talents, expertise. They know they've got a background. They know they've got a story. They know they want to help people, but they can't just quite see how to fit it all together, right? And the beauty of having an organization, the privilege of having an organization that almost acts like a mirror to be able to help people sort of see that value, recognize that mountain that they're on, and be able to start packaging it up in a way that really does not just serve them, but serves the world, is why I do what I do. Thank you all. I hope you got some value from that.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for what you've done for us today. It really highlights that we've just got to not just, build a personal brand, I think is a cliche that's been overdone, but really what's involved in doing that. One of the things that instantly stands out to me, first I'll mention one thing that kind of stood out to me from this presentation is people only pay for the value they recognize. So I think that's super powerful. So you can bring a lot of value, but if someone doesn't recognize it, you're not going to get paid for it. And I've seen this many, many times where people generate a ton of value, but they capture very little of it. And so that's such an important point. Thank you so much, Glenn. That was just amazing value.
Thank you for having me. Love the work that you do. And, for everyone listening in, Allan is an absolute exemplar of this methodology. Every single one of those steps: pitch, publish, product, profile, partnership. So not only when you read the book, when you see Allan's ecosystem, you're like, oh, wow, this is what world-class looks like. So, Allan, thank you for introducing me to your audience.
It's my pleasure. Thanks again, Glenn.